Hello and welcome to my channel where we talk about tips and tricks for teaching elementary. Actually, not today. No, today we're going to talk about money. Money? Yeah, we're not a financial channel. Remember that it took you a while to get your finances in order because you didn't know what you were doing? Don't you want to help somebody else out with that? I do want to be helpful. Okay. Okay, have at it. Here's today's video. So today I want to talk to you about finances. Yes, I know that I'm not a financial channel and I don't have any kind of like training or anything like that, but I want to tell you something that happened to me and I want to try to prevent this for you, okay? So my very first teaching job was at a private school and it didn't pay a lot of money, hardly at all, and I was still living at home with my parents because I couldn't afford to go out on my own, and eventually I ended up getting enough money together that I was able to go out and live with a roommate for a while in an apartment. And then I got my first public school position. And it was almost double what I was making in the private school. Now, if you've done any research at all, you know how much money, public school teachers make. It's not, all that in a bag of chips. So you can just imagine, right? So I was so excited to be doing this salary that was almost twice what I had made before, and I had not been making good financial decisions along the way anyway. I'm gonna put that out there for a second. So I bought a lot of things before I was even starting to collect paychecks on the new job, okay? And where I was living financially was not what it was coming in. So it was doing this sort of thing. It wasn't meeting. And so I lived with credit card debt for a long time. There's a 6-letter word that would really help you to stay on track that a lot of people think is like, ugh, I don't want to do that. And that is the word budget, right? We have in this culture, I'm speaking to myself, we have in this culture celebrity ideas of how we want to live, but we don't have celebrity money, okay? So you've got to live within your means. And if you can do that, if you can learn how to do it when you're still in your 20s and you're just starting out in the teaching profession, you will be okay because you're living within your means, within your parameters, and you'll be able to save up for the things that you want to do, like going on the big trips or buying the big thing or whatever that situation is, or buying a house or getting a newer car, or all of those things. You'll be able to do it because you're doing it the right way. Okay, it took me until my early 50s before I got financially healthy. Truth. And that was when I finally decided to sit down and make a budget. Okay, and that really helped me out to know what I was spending money on, where I could possibly save money, where I could possibly cut money, all of those things, and then eventually get on track to be able to be financially healthy and not be living paycheck to paycheck, constantly switching one set of credit card debt over to another, rolling it over to another credit card debt. Oh, I just got a new offer for 0% whatever. Let me roll that over into this new card for however many months. All of those things, okay? So if I could help anybody out there that's watching this video to not go through all of that, then this video will have done its job. So first of all, we're going to look at the typical salary of a beginning teacher. We're going to look at it from two perspectives, the 10-month perspective and the 12-month perspective. And then we're going to look at how to break down and make a budget for yourself and what that could look like as well. All right, let's get into this. Okay. The first thing I want to look at is the actual salary and the things involved in the salary, because this is something that I think surprises a lot of people that have been working with like part-time jobs or have been doing some sort of work study, which is also a part-time job, but it might just be going straight towards your tuition and things like that. The breakdown of how much money you're not going to be putting in your pocket. When you see a certain salary number, your head kind of goes, oh, that could mean I could get blah, blah, blah a month, and maybe not. So let's look at this screen together. So I mocked up something here where I've got, if you did not know this, teachers' contracts are 10-month contracts, okay? If you do nothing after you sign your contract for that first contract and you do nothing to it, you are going to receive this money spread out over 10 months, and the 2 summer months that you are not physically working, which usually are July, August, might be part of June, all of July, part of August, depends on how it falls out in your teaching schedule. Those 2 months, those 4 paychecks, usually is what it ends up being, are going to be non-existent because you're going to get all of your money through 10 months, okay? But there's also an option for teachers, and that's called reserve pay, and we're going to talk about that as well. Either way is good, okay? It's your choice whether you want all of your money given to you over the 10 months or whether you want to have some set aside so that in the summer you still get a paycheck coming in, okay? I will tell you this, if you're going to be a 10-month person, okay, I have a member of my family who's also a teacher who's a 10-month person. She gets all of her money through 10 months, and because she's a very good saver. So all year long while she's teaching those 10 months, she is putting her own amount of money, whatever that is, I don't know, into a savings account so that she has enough money to cover her summer, okay? That's how she likes to do it. I am a 12-month person. I would rather have reserve pay coming to me through the summer, okay? So we're going to talk about both of those. We're also going to talk about the fact that in some cases when you first start out teaching, even if you decide to do reserve pay, you may still decide that you want to get a summer job for the first 2 or 3 years, helping out in a retail store, doing something totally unconnected with children, probably. So you can still decompress from that, but you can make some extra money over the summer to help pay off that car note or the credit card debt or the student loans or whatever the situation may be, or maybe just to put it in savings if that's your preference. Okay. All right. So let's look more fully at this here. So I'm just using an average beginning teacher salary, 1 degree, no experience. Okay. State to state is going to vary. Locality to locality is going to vary. I thought it would just be nice and easy to do $50,000. Okay. So if you have a income of $50,000, the current federal tax rate for that is 22%. All right. So these right here, these top 3 right here that you see, the federal tax, the state tax, and the FICA, they're non-negotiable. They are coming out of your paycheck regardless. You have no choice in the matter. Okay. So the federal tax, that's going to be true across the board no matter what state you're in. The state tax is going to vary from state to state. It's just going to depend on the situation. You might also have locality taxes depending on your situation. I went ahead and chose a 7% state tax. Could be more, could be less. Okay. And you can see what that ends up doing. So 22% of $50,000 is $11,000 coming off right off the bat. Throughout the whole year, you're never going to see that money. State tax at 7% would be $3,500. Okay. Then you have FICA. That's like your Social Security, Medicare, or Medicaid, whatever. It's another government tax, but it doesn't go towards like running the government per se. It goes towards all those like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid stuff. And so that's an 8% tax right there. Okay. So that's $4,000. So right now, the 10 months and the 12 months, they're exactly the same. Okay. Getting the same amount of money taken out. It doesn't, spreading it out over 12 months isn't going to make it any less. Getting it in 10 isn't going to make it more. None of that. Okay. So then we've got reserve pay, and you can see on the 10 month, I did none taken, right? And then over here, reserve pay is going to be 15%. At least that's what it is in my district. Could be less, more in somebody else's district. Okay. So about $7,500 being taken off that you're not going to see until summer. Okay. All right. So retirement is an unknown because it depends on how your system is set up at the public school system you're going to. Okay. When people that came in before me were hired at my district and in my state, the state of Virginia, they were told and they got 100% of their average of their, so they take your highest paid 3 years and they average it out, right? And they get 100% of that salary for life after retirement, okay? My group, somewhere along the way, they dropped us down to a lower percentage rate. The group after me doesn't have a guaranteed percentage rate of retirement money, but they have treated it now like a 401k, where like the employer will put X amount in and the teacher will put X amount in and can always do more if they want, okay? But the employer will match a certain amount, but they could go over if they want, okay? I do get some taken out, but mine is set because whatever the state of Virginia did, like I said, they had this 100% group and now they have this 401k situation, but somewhere in the middle, while they were trying to figure out where they wanted to go from the 100% group, they just said to us, you're going to be a certain percentage, and we're also going to take a little bit out from your paycheck every month to help out, but you can't add that, change that, lower that, or anything, and we're not matching it because we're already giving you a certain percentage. So it's convoluted, but it is what it is, okay? So all that being said, so if you look down here at the ballpark, so remember, retirement is an unknown. We just don't know. It could be that you're in a situation where they're not taking anything out of your paycheck. They're dealing with themselves. It could be that they are. It could be that you get to choose. So we just don't know about retirement. So forget about retirement and just focus on the rest of it. All right. So ballpark. After getting all of this stuff taken out up here, all the taxes, with no reserve pay, you're at $31,500. That's like what you're clearing, like what you can spend. You don't have to put that anywhere else. It's completely yours to spend. Got it? Over here in the reserve pay, you're at $24,000. Okay. So, you can see the difference right there. It's $7,500 difference. I will tell you this, that in the summertime, in addition to getting that $7,500 back at this $50,000 rate, $50,000 salary, in addition to getting that back, at least in my district, I would imagine it's the same in all, I get during the 10 months, medical, dental, vision, all these things that I have over here that we're going to talk about in a minute. Medical, dental, vision. I have a 403B, which I'm not going to tell you what I get taken out of that. Life insurance, all of those sorts of things. I will tell you what the 403B is. All of those monies I get taken out every single paycheck during the 10 months. Okay. But in the summertime, those things aren't getting taken out anymore because they get paid over the 10 months. So in addition to having that, this monthly amount of $2,000, let's say, in the summertime, it's probably going to be closer to $2,200 because they're not taking out this other stuff, right? So just summer paychecks tend to be bigger is my whole point, because they're not having to take out the other things that they took out over a 10-month draw. Okay. All right. So let's look at these things. So all these things up here in the green, all the taxes and the FICA, no choice in the matter. You have zero choice. Okay. That's going to happen. Reserve pay, totally your choice, which way you want to go, but you don't get to tell them how much to take out. Okay. You don't get to say, can you please only take 5% out? And that way I can still have a summer job, but still have a little something coming in. You don't get that choice. You just say reserve pay or no reserve pay. Okay. Retirement is unknown because that's going to be based off your district. You're going to have to find all that out. Okay. So we've got our ballparks. So let's look at 10 months first. So we've got $3,150 over a 10-month period. And you decide, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and do the medical, dental, vision, the life insurance. I'm going to sign up for all of it and just get this going so that I won't even miss the money later on. It's just going to get taken out right away. And that way I'm covered, because most school districts have really good benefits as far as like your medical insurance and all that. So I just put some random numbers down here. Okay. It could be less than 100 per month. But as a single person, it's probably not going to be more than 100 per month, right? Because I'm assuming the majority of people that are going to be interested in this are going to be, and this is who I'm gearing this toward, beginning teachers, right? So it's people that are just coming out of college, they're in their 20s and whatnot like that. So most of you all are probably not married and have children yet and doing family plans. But keep in mind, a family plan would be more expensive, okay? All right, so you've got your medical, I said 100, dental is 25, it's gonna vary. Vision is 10, gonna vary. 403B, that is, my district has a thing where they will, if I want, this is a totally your choice program. If I want to, I can get extra money taken out pre-tax. They work with an outside company that works with the district. And my district will take X amount of money out of my paycheck, and it goes straight towards this outside company that, it's a financial company that will put it into the market and all those sorts of things, right? And it just sits there. And the whole idea behind a 403B, the reason they started this, is before they turned the retirement system into kind of a 401k situation where you've got employer does this much and you can match or go further. It was just you're going to get however much money from retirement. With this 403B, it acts like a 401k, right? So except for the fact that the employer's not matching anything. This is completely my money. The employer is just facilitating the process so that I can get it taken out pre-tax. But the kicker is, when I go to retire, whenever that is, and I want to access that money, I'm going to have to pay taxes on it every time I pull it out. So some people don't like a pre-tax shelter type situation, and some people are fine with it. So before you would embark, I did not start doing this until I was maybe 4 or 5 years into my public school teaching situation is when I signed up for this. So I certainly didn't do it the first few years. So I don't know that I would make that a priority right away, and I would think you would want to research that more and see whether you wanted to go down that road at all or not, if that's even an option in your district. Okay, life insurance, $40 a month. So what that is I think it's like $10,000 to $15,000 policy. It's a group life insurance policy. The idea being that, God forbid something happens to you and you pass away and, you're still a worker for that school district, that your family would have enough money to bury you, is the kind of idea behind the life insurance policy. It's not supposed to sustain your family for anything. It's supposed to be, that they would have money for funeral expenses. And I don't know the answer to this question or not. If, like, when I retire, do I get to keep that policy? I've not looked into that at this point. Okay. So if you notice over here on the 12 month, I went ahead, so we're still in this green section right here. I went ahead and did question mark, because you might decide, especially because you're only taking home $2,000 a month, you might decide, if you're under 26, you can still be on your parents' insurance if they'll let you do it. So you might decide, I'm gonna wait until I get a little bit higher on the salary scale. I'm gonna take advantage of it and stay on my parents and whatever. And you might decide, like I said, I didn't even touch this 403B until 4 or 5 years into public school teaching. And you might decide, I'm really young, I don't even want to think about life insurance right now, so I'm just going to let that be as well. These are things you can always opt into later on. Like every year, I think it's like right in the beginning of the school year, like September, October timeframe, they will ask, do you want benefits? Do you want benefits? Do you want benefits? Okay. okay? So you can always add into those later, all right? So those are optional. So I went ahead and left them blank because we've got a 1,150 deficit, right, between these two monthly paychecks, right? So I just went ahead and said, let's not pay that with the 10-month, okay? But it would totally be your choice. I mean, with the 12-month, it would totally be your choice. I did it. I did do it. I paid it ever since, except for that 403B. That was the only thing I waited on. All right, rent and mortgage. Now, don't laugh. I realize this is very low, but you're going to understand why I put this like this. Because let me go down to the bottom first. If you see, after we do what I'm going to go through, at the 10-month, you have plus 225 over what I said, right? So that would be a good situation to be in, because then you can play around with some numbers up above, okay? But at the 12-month, you're at a minus 650, okay? This is where you're in a situation where, gee, I definitely have to have a summer job so that I can, save up enough money to pay off everything, after the school year's over, in addition, or whatever the scenario is. Or maybe you have to play around with some of the numbers that we're going to look at, okay? All right, so we're just going to look at basic numbers. So I did the same numbers down the board with both of them. So let's just look at this side. So rent and mortgage, I said $1,000. Yeah, I get it. I get it. That sounds ridiculously low. So maybe the first few years that you teach, maybe you have a roommate situation, right? Maybe, when I taught in private school, because I was making a ton less money than, I won't even say it because you're just going to be like shocked. It was the 90s though, so use your imagination. I had to live at home for the first 5 years. It was the last 2 that I was able to, figure it out and move out with a roommate. But even then, I was still living paycheck to paycheck and using my credit card for a lot of stuff and paying above minimum, but still not good enough, right? Okay, so maybe there's a situation where you can live at home for a while longer. Maybe there's a situation where you can have a roommate or two and get that rent or mortgage down to $1,000 or even less than that and move some money around somewhere else, okay? Utilities, $150. It's going to depend. This is another thing where having a roommate would be great, because your power alone could be $150, right? So could your water. It just depends on the situation and where you live and how expensive things are. So it's another situation, whereas if you could have a roommate, even if you were living with your parents and your parents were like, you know what, we're glad to have you here, but we need you to contribute some. Yeah, absolutely. Because I guarantee, well, I don't guarantee, I would hope that they would help ask you to contribute less than you would be if you were out completely on your own, so that because that it would be doable, right? I did when I lived with my parents, when I was teaching at that private school. I gave them a monthly amount, and I was glad to do it because, and I gave them a monthly amount. I also bought a lot of my own food, and I think I even cooked every once in a while for the family. I can't remember. It's been a million years. So anything you could do to make it so that you can live within a budget is going to be helpful, and we're going to talk about how to figure that out. Car payment. So one of the first things I did when I got that new job was I bought a new car and I bought a house. Now, prices were not what they were back then. Money went further, the salary went further, etc., etc., etc. But I still would go back and tell myself, why are you doing both of these at the same time? You don't have celebrity kind of money to be doing a new car, brand new car, not used car, a brand new car and a house. You don't have that kind of celebrity money to be doing those at the same time. What are you doing, right? Okay. So I would really caution you, if your car still runs and you're not having to take it to the shop every single week for breakdowns, keep it for as long as you can before you add a car payment into stuff, okay? I have a car payment right now that I wish I didn't have. I can afford it because I've budgeted for it, but every time I go to think, oh, I'd like to take a trip to such and such, or I'd like to do such and such, I'm like, well, if I wasn't paying X amount of money per month to this car payment, I'd be able to set money aside to do that trip, right? But no, I'm stuck with a car payment for a little bit longer. So things like that you just have to make that decision. Is it good to do it now, right? Or can I wait to do it? Okay. So gas and insurance, this is going to be flexible. Obviously a newer car is going to be more insurance than a older car. Gas, how far are you traveling? All of those sorts of things. You can't always control that. Obviously we can't control the price of gas ever. There are apps out there to help you find like the lowest gas. There's different clubs you can join, like Sam's Club and stuff, I guess, that you can go and get gas for cheaper and all those sorts of things. If it becomes a real issue, and you live far away from where you're teaching, maybe you decide you want to move closer, maybe you decide you want to carpool. Sometimes, whatever the situation is, play around with that a little bit, but not a ton. So that's just something to keep in mind. Food. You can absolutely play around with food. Now, I went very generous here for somebody who's making $50,000 a year to be spending $400 a month on themselves for food. The reason I went generous here is when we get into that budget, budgets are going to show you where your spending things are, and mine is food. Yeah, it's my big line item, because of the fact that I want to be able to eat what I want to eat when I want to eat it, and yeah, so it's something that I've had to work out for myself and tweak the budget here and there and all that to make that work for me. Okay, cell phone. Some of y'all might be laughing at this number. If you're young enough and your parents are willing for you to stay on their plan a little bit longer, and you're willing to, pay them, a certain amount every month that's this or less, and they're willing to do that for you, great. If not, I know we all like the big name cell phone companies, but some of these newer ones out there are pretty reasonable, that they've got where you can get on for like, $20-30 a month. So you could maybe really save some money here depending on how you want to go about it. Okay. Also, if this ends up being like food is my thing, maybe cell phone is your thing. Maybe you're like, I need to have the latest and greatest top of the line, and I need to have the best whatever, plan, memory, all the things. Maybe this is where you spend your money extra and you don't spend as much on food. It's, you're going to have to play around with these numbers. All right, debt. Hopefully you don't have any, but chances are pretty good if you're, even as young as 22 and just coming out of college, you've got some sort of debt, whether it's credit card debt, whether it's student loans or whatever. This is a number you can play around with to an extent. Obviously there's minimum payments you can make to things, but whenever possible, if you can pay over those minimum payments to get your debt down faster, that's better. If you don't know this rule, pay off the smallest one first. So if you happen to have 3 credit cards, one of them you owe $1,000, another you owe $5, and the other one you owe $7, pay the $1,000 one off first, right? Then go and work on the $5,000 one, and go work on the $7,000 one, etc., etc., etc. Something that really helped me when I got financially healthy was to put all of my credit card debt on one credit card, right? So I could see the totality of it. And I didn't just pay the minimum payment. I did double or triple or quadruple, however much I could do over the minimum payment. Any extra money I ended up getting, if I got a bonus for work, if I got birthday money, whatever, I was throwing on to get that credit card debt down. Meanwhile, I got a brand new credit card that had no debt on it whatsoever, and I used that for everything you use a credit card for, you know, paying for your gas, paying for, you know, stuff at Target, paying for stuff, you know, all the things you use a credit card for. I used that, but I made sure they were all budget items, and I paid that one off every single month. So I wasn't adding to my credit card debt. So I had this credit card over here that was, I'm really big and you got to pay me down, that was never getting used again. And paid it down, paid it down, paid it down, paid it down. Meanwhile, I learned healthy credit card habits with pay for this, pay for this, pay for this, pay for this. At the end of the month, okay, I got to pay for it all. And I had made sure that my budget covered it all, right? Because I had done the budget work beforehand. Okay, we're going to talk how to do that too. All right, so then we've got miscellaneous flexible. So this could be anything as much as, you know, it could be like medicine you need every month. It could be just going out and getting toiletries. It could be hair. It could be whatever it is. I just put $100 a month. Who knows? You know, it's going to depend on what we see in the budget. All right. And then I said savings. Do it. And I have two saving choices here. These numbers are flexible. All of these numbers, really are going to be flexible to a point, okay? Rent and mortgage might not be as flexible, but if you play around with having a roommate or two, you know, utilities, same thing. If you play around with having a roommate or two, etc. By the way, if you don't know this, my power company here in Virginia, which is Dominion Power, has something they call a budget plan, where you can call them up and you can say, or go in, I don't know however you want to do it. You might could do it online, and you can say, I want to get on the budget plan. And what that does is it gives you a pretty stable amount of money you're going to pay for power for about 6 months, and then it'll fluctuate a little bit. So instead of having, like, in the summertime, my power bill is because of all the air conditioning, but in the spring it's lower. In the fall, it's lower, and in the winter, it's because of all the heat, right? Instead of having that, I pay a relatively stable amount of money pretty much every month. So it'll be like 6 months. I'll just use this number that's right here. 6 months, $150, right? And then they reevaluate it at the end of the 6 month mark, and maybe it goes down to $148 for 6 months. And maybe the 6 months after that, it goes up to $156, right? So it's just kind of a stable amount of money instead of having the highs and the lows of the power bill, right? Okay, and it's because you're prepaying. Let's say in the springtime, you're prepaying for a hot summer and all the AC, right? And you're prepaying in the fall for all of the heat and the cold weather, right? Okay. That's kind of what you're doing with that sort of situation. So if it's worth it to look into to see if your power company offers some sort of a budget plan, because it makes it more, you know, consistent. All right, continuing on. Savings. So this is definitely flexible here. The reason I have two numbers is I think you should have two savings accounts. You need to save money, period, end of. You get a flat tire. How are you paying for that? You're a homeowner and your hot water heater stops working. How are you paying for that? You have to go to a funeral that's in another state and you have no gas to get there or no plane fare money or however you want to get there. How are you paying for these things? You have to have an emergency savings plan, okay? In addition to that, the small, so that would be the bigger number, the 150. These are negotiable. That would be the 150. In the case of the smaller number, the $50 number, this is going to be a non-emergency savings plan that you're going to use to save up for stuff. So I want the latest and greatest, newest phone that I know is coming out in like 6 months. I'm going to start a savings account for that. I want to go away on a vacation with my friends. I'm going to put that into savings and start that up so that when I go to get those things, maybe when that cell phone comes out or maybe when that vacation happens, you don't have all the money saved up yet, but you're not starting from zero, right? Maybe by the time that vacation happens, you've got a good solid, $300 in that account, and that's, at least a day and a half or something of the vacation. You know what I'm saying? So you're not like starting from scratch like you would be if you just put all of it on your credit card and had no plan on how to pay it off, okay? And the longer you can let those things sit, the more chance you have of being able to save up for the entire vacation, say. All right, so in the case of the 12-month, we ended up having plus 225. So you could do anything you wanted with that. You could throw that into a higher mortgage or rent. You could throw it into more utilities. Maybe you like the cell phone issue. Maybe you want to pay more debt off. Maybe you want more savings, whatever, but you have some flexibility there. But with those same numbers over here in the 12-month, with only the $2,000 a month, we ended up having a deficit of $650. So you would definitely have to play around with those numbers there. You'd probably have to cut some of your savings. I would think that would definitely be a place you would start. Have to cut some of your debt down, maybe some of your food down, maybe definitely be getting like 2 or 3 roommates, cut down some of that mortgage. In the meanwhile, you would also say to yourself, okay, this says to me that I'm definitely going to get a summer job so that I can pay down this. So maybe you keep all these things like this, but this is going to be your summer debt, and you get a job that's going to pay you enough over the summer that you can pay that summer debt off, right? Things like that. Okay. So let's talk about how to do an actual budget. Okay, so you can see in front of you that I have a budget template put out here. So I just took the things that we talked about, which are rent, mortgage, power, water, that's your utilities, right? Cell, internet, right? Food, auto, medical. I put that up there, pulled that out there because that, by medical, it could be doctor's appointments, it could be medicine, okay? Those sorts of things. Clothing, if that's a line item that you want to have. Savings, that's that first savings, that emergency one. Miscellaneous, that's that, toiletries, whatever situation. Miscellaneous means miscellaneous, literally. Debts, streaming services, because we didn't talk about that. Non-emergency savings, hair, nails, etc., whatever you want to put in that category, and fun money, okay? So, these things, you could change this, you could have these as line items, you could add line items, all of those things. Anyway, all of that being said, your budget is going to look like whatever your stuff looks like. So this is how you would write a budget. So you would have like the date, when did I start this budget? And if you were to do this for this school year, I would not make the budget until October. What I mean by that is when you first come in to your new salaried position, the first few paychecks are not going to be even, usually, because they might take out extra this, or maybe you only worked 1 week during that pay period, or maybe there's a bonus, a signing bonus, that they're giving you, or something like that, or maybe they might even give you some sort of teacher supply money. All of those sorts of things. So usually it takes until about 4 paychecks or so until you can consistently see, okay, this is my take-home pay. It's the same every single time. This is my take-home pay, this is my take-home pay, and then you can add that up together over the month to know what it is that you're getting in your take-home pay. Okay, it's not always going to be like you sitting down and figuring out, I'm getting $50,000 in my salary, this is what my take-home pay should be. Remember, I said it's ballpark, because depending on what else they're taking out of your paycheck is going to flesh out what your take-home pay is going to be, okay? So that's where your take-home pay would be. Your monthly take-home pay is, let's just use the $2,000 one from the 12-month. $2,000, yeah, that's the date you would put, and this is the $2,000. Okay, so then you would put down, okay, so I'm paying the $1,000 in rent, all those things that we put over there before, and over here would be your method of payment. I put that down there because some things require you to pay online, like a web pay situation. Some things require you might be using your credit card to pay for. Some things you might decide you want to write an old-fashioned check for it. Some things you might decide you want, maybe the person you go see for hair only wants cash. All of those things, just so you kind of know what it is that you're going to be doing as far as your method of payment. Okay, so once you have all that figured out, which we're going to talk about how to figure that out in a moment, once you have all that figured out, then you're going to want to have something like this that you're going to use every month for the first, I would say year or so, to make sure you're really staying on track with your spending, where you're going to write out exactly how much money you spent, right? So you're going to sit here and you're going to do I spent $1,000 here. Power was only $140 this month. Water was, I'm pretending $85 this month. My internet went up to $110 this month. My internet. My food, I was able to eat, a little bit cheaper, so I'm gonna do $380. All these down the line, right? And you look to see, okay, on the budget item, it said that power was, let's not look at power. It said that food was going to be $400, right? But I only spent $380. So maybe over here you can say plus $20, which you can use if like something went over. Like we had this cell internet that we were saying was only going to be $100. And it's 110. So 10 of that 20 is going to go help that out, right? You could also hold it if you're like, you know what? I know that I've got a big, trip coming up and I want to spend a lot of money on food because we're going to go out to eat every night. So maybe you just write hold there, right? So that it's that extra $20 is available for the next time. So these things are kind of flexible, but the bottom line is you won't know this unless you're keeping track. Right? So how do you end up keeping track of all this? Well, for about at least 2 months, if not 3, you are going to want to write down every penny you spend everywhere. Okay? So you are going to want to sit down and write down at the end of every day, I spent $58 on Amazon. I spent $10 at Starbucks. I spent $20 on a streaming service. Whatever the scenario is, you're going to want to write down every single penny that you spend for a solid 2 months, so you can then go back and really see, okay, I thought my cell phone bill was only $100, but it looks like every time it comes, my cell phone and my internet, I thought it was only $100, but every time it comes up, I've been paying $110. I need to adjust that on my budget, right? I thought I was living within my means with my food situation, but I'm spending $500 a month on food because I keep going out to eat with my friends. Maybe I need to cook a few nights a week. Maybe I need to do a bag lunch for work. Whatever the scenario is, maybe I need to eat breakfast at home every day instead of going and getting, Wawa coffee and donuts. Whatever the scenario might be, there are ways that you can bring down things that make it work better for you, right? So little tweaks that you would end up making, but you can't make those tweaks until you can see where your big ticket items are, right? And the ones that are non-negotiable, like you might go in there and find out that you have 6 streaming services, one of which you never watch, another one that you maybe watch one show on and they haven't put any new episodes out for like a month. Things like that you could turn on and off, right? Netflix. I've had Netflix before. I don't currently have Netflix because there's nothing on Netflix that I want to watch right now, okay? But when there are shows that come on Netflix, I'll turn it on and I'll have Netflix for a month or two. And what I usually do is I usually end up letting that show finish before I turn on the Netflix so that I can binge watch it, right? And I might stick around for, because I've paid a month for it, I might stick around for the full month and look around and see if there's anything else I want to watch. And if there's something that catches my attention and causes me to stay on for another month or two, that's fine. But usually I will turn it off because I'm like, I'm not watching Netflix, so why am I paying them the money every month? The bottom line is, if you don't mark out your money for a good solid 2 months, you're not going to know what you're spending it on. You're not going to know where you can cut it, where you can add to it, where you can move things around. You can make this work. You can make it work as a teacher who's making $50,000 a year, living on your own, having that single income. You can make it work. You can even make it work as a 12-month reserve pay situation. But you have got to do the numbers. Otherwise, you're going to be sitting there living paycheck to paycheck, having credit card debt that never gets paid off, and not being financially healthy at all, and being very frustrated because not having your money right can be very frustrating. Okay, so I know that this wasn't about music, but I think this is an important lesson, especially for beginning teachers to learn. And I hope that you got some good advice out of this. And I hope that that this will help you to maybe breathe better about money and to make some better decisions for yourself so that you can be financially healthy much sooner than I was in my early 50s. All that being said, I hope that you'll come back sometime and check out some other videos on tips and tricks for teaching elementary music. And don't forget to subscribe. Have a fantastic day.